Sylvester Stallone's fist slammed against the hood of a parked car as he charged toward three bullies who had a young black girl pinned against a wall, tears streaming down her face. The biggest one turned around, puffed his chest, then his jaw dropped the moment he recognized the man barreling toward him like a freight train. What happened in the next 48 hours would become a neighborhood legend, a story whispered about for decades. What happened in the next 48 hours would become a Philadelphia neighborhood legend, a story whispered about for decades by people who swore they saw it with their own eyes, and people who absolutely did not but told it anyway. Let me take you back. It's 1985. Stallone is in Philly shooting a little movie you might have heard of called Rocky IV. He's between scenes, wandering the old neighborhood in full workout gear because that's what Stallone does. He doesn't sit in trailers. He doesn't scroll a phone because phones don't scroll yet. He walks, he moves, he shadow boxes on corners where he used to get chased by guys twice his size. This is his city. He knows every cracked sidewalk, every fire hydrant, every alley where you learn real fast whether you're a fighter or a runner. He's cutting through a side street near Kensington when he hears it. Not yelling exactly. Something worse, laughing, three boys maybe 14, 15 years old, circling a girl who can't be more than 10. She's black, small, wearing a school uniform with a plaid skirt that's got a fresh rip near the hem. One kid has her backpack. Another is flicking the back of her head every time she reaches for it. The third is just standing there with his arms crossed, watching, like he's the supervisor of cruelty. Here's what nobody tells you. Stallone didn't yell from across the street. He didn't announce himself. He just walked. Fast, quiet. His jaw tightened. His hands balled into fists, and he closed the distance in about 4 seconds. The girl's name, he'd learn later, was Keisha Williams. 10 years old. Walked home from school the same way every single day. And every single day for the past 2 weeks, these three boys had been waiting for her. They called her names I won't repeat. They took her homework and threw it in puddles. They told her she didn't belong in their neighborhood. 2 weeks of this. Every day. Nobody stopped it. Adults saw it and looked the other way because that's what adults do sometimes. They convince themselves it's kids being kids, and they keep walking to wherever they're going because their dinner is getting cold, and their shows are about to start and somebody else will handle it. Nobody else handled it. Until Stallone rounded that corner. He grabbed the biggest kid first, that collar grab I told you about, shoved him back. The boy hit a chain-link fence and his eyes went wide because the man standing in front of him had arms that looked like they were manufactured in a factory that builds things designed to break other things. The second kid dropped Keisha's backpack like it was on fire. The third kid, the supervisor, uncrossed his arms real quick. "What's going on here?" Stallone said. Not loud, low, the kind of low that makes your stomach drop. The big kid stammered. "We were just playing." Stallone took a step closer, just one step, but that one step ate up all the air between them. "Playing, that what you call this?" Believe me, when Sylvester Stallone asks you a question in that voice, you don't lie a second time. You physically cannot. Your mouth opens and the truth falls out whether you want it to or not. The kid against the fence swallowed hard. His two buddies started backing up. Keisha stood there with tears running down her face, holding her torn backpack strap in one hand. Stallone turned to her. His whole body changed. The tension in his shoulders dropped. His fists opened. He knelt down right there on the dirty sidewalk and he looked her in the eyes. "You okay?" She shook her head no. "They do this a lot?" She nodded. He stood back up, turned to the three boys, and now his posture shifted again like a switch flipping. "You three, sit down." They didn't move. "I said sit down." They sat, right on the curb, all three of them, like somebody cut the strings holding them up. "Now, let me stop here for a second because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is the part where Stallone gives a nice little speech about bullying and everybody learns a lesson and the music swells and credits roll. No, that's not what happened. Not even close. What happened next is why this story survived 4 decades. What happened next is why I'm telling it to you right now. Stallone looked at these three boys sitting on the curb, and he didn't lecture them. He didn't scream. He pulled up a milk crate from the side of the street, sat down across from them, and started talking. Not at them, to them. And the first thing he said caught everybody off guard. "I used to be you. Get this." Stallone, the biggest action star on the planet at that moment, sitting on a milk crate in Kensington telling 3 teenage bullies that he used to be just like them. And he meant it. He told them about growing up in Hell's Kitchen, New York. Not the version you see in movies. The real one. The one where his parents fought so loud the neighbors would bang on the walls and his old man would bang right back harder. He told them about being the kid nobody wanted at school, the kid with the droopy face and the slurred speech because of nerve damage from a complicated birth. Kids called him slant mouth. They called him worse. Teachers wrote him off. His own father told him he wasn't good enough, would never be good enough, was a waste of space taking up oxygen that useful people needed. I swear this happened. He sat there and told these boys all of it, not to get sympathy, not to perform. He told them because he wanted them to understand something specific. You know why I picked on smaller kids when I was your age, he said? Because somebody bigger was picking on me, and I didn't know how to stop that, so I passed it down, like a disease. The big kid shifted on the curb, wouldn't look at Stallone directly, stared at his own shoes. Keisha hadn't moved. She stood a few feet behind Stallone, still holding that torn strap, watching the back of his head like she was trying to figure out if this was real. Now here's where the story takes a turn that nobody expected. Not the boys, not Keisha. Not the small crowd that had started gathering because apparently Sylvester Stallone sitting on a milk crate in your neighborhood draws a few eyeballs. Stallone pointed at the big kid. "What's your name?" "Tommy." "Tommy, stand up." Tommy stood. His legs were shaking slightly, you could see it in his knees. "Hit me," Stallone said. Tommy blinked. "What?" "You heard me. You like pushing people around. Push me. Hit me. Take a swing right here." He tapped his own jaw. "Free shot. I won't move." The crowd got bigger. Somebody in the back said, "Oh, man." A woman covered her mouth with her hand. Tommy looked at his friends. His friends looked at the ground. He was alone now. That's the thing about bullies, right? The crew disappears the second the heat comes, the second the target punches back or the teacher shows up, or in this case, Rocky Balboa offers you his chin. Tommy's hand stayed at his sides. "I don't want to hit you." "Why not?" "Because you're bigger than me." Stallone let that answer sit in the air for about 3 seconds. Then he pointed at Keisha. "So is she supposed to want to get hit by you? She's smaller than you. She's younger than you. She's alone. You got 2 friends. What's the difference between what you do to her and what I could do to you right now? Trust me on this." Tommy's face changed. Not gradually. All at once. The mask came off. And underneath it wasn't a tough kid. Underneath it was a boy who looked like he was about to cry. And Stallone saw it. He saw it immediately. Because he recognized it. That's the thing. He didn't see a villain standing in front of him. He saw a kid drowning in something he didn't have words for. Stallone's voice dropped even lower, almost gentle. "Who hits you at home, Tommy?" The street went dead silent. Even the traffic seemed to pause. That question hung there, and everybody in that small crowd suddenly felt uncomfortable because they all knew the answer before Tommy gave it. Tommy's jaw clenched. His eyes got red. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Stallone nodded slowly. He reached out and put his hand on Tommy's shoulder. "Yeah, I know exactly what that's like. Here's the part that gets me every time I tell this story." Stallone reached into the pocket of his sweatpants and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, a call sheet from the movie set. He flipped it over, pulled a pen from somewhere, and wrote something on the back. He handed it to Tommy. "That's the address of a gym on North Broad. Guy who runs it is named Hector Morales. You go there tomorrow after school, you tell him Sly sent you, he'll put you to work." Tommy took the paper, stared at it. His hands were trembling. "You got something inside you that needs to come out," Stallone said. "Right now you're letting it out on her." He nodded toward Keisha. "That's wrong. You know it's wrong. But the thing inside you isn't wrong. It just needs a place to go. Now check this out." He didn't stop with Tommy. He looked at the other 2 boys. "Same goes for you, all 3 of you. Tomorrow, after school. You don't show up, I'll hear about it, and I'll come find you, and next time I won't be this friendly." You could argue that last part was a threat, and yeah, maybe it was. But sometimes a threat from the right person at the right time is the kindest thing you'll ever receive. Sometimes a threat is the guardrail between the cliff and the rest of your life. Stallone stood up from the milk crate. He walked over to Keisha, knelt down again. "What's in the backpack?" "My homework and my library book." "Which book?" "Charlotte's Web." He took the backpack from her gently, looked at the torn strap and tied it in a knot so it would hold. Then he opened it, pulled out the library book, checked the cover and handed it back. "Good book. You read a lot?" She nodded. "Every day." "Good. Don't stop. Not for them. Not for anybody." He looked her in the eyes. "You hear me? Not for anybody." She wiped her face with the back of her hand and nodded again. And then Stallone did something that broke the whole scene open. He stood up, took Keisha's hand and said, "Where do you live? I'm walking you home." A 10-year-old black girl and Sylvester Stallone hand in hand walking down the street in Kensington, Philadelphia. The crowd parted. People stared. A couple of guys on a stoop started clapping, slow at first, then faster. Somebody whistled. An older woman leaning out of a second-floor window shouted, "God bless you, Rocky!" Stallone didn't acknowledge any of it. His eyes were forward, his hand was around Keisha's. His stride shortened to match hers because she had little legs and he wasn't about to drag her. That's a detail people always leave out. He slowed down for her. They walked 4 blocks through a neighborhood that had seen better days and worse days and everything in between. Past a barber shop where every chair swiveled to the window. Past a bodega where the owner came outside with his apron still on. Past a group of older teenagers who recognized Stallone and literally could not process what they were seeing. When they got to Keisha's house, a narrow row house with a green door and a small porch, her mother was standing outside. She'd heard the commotion. Somebody had run ahead and told her. She was standing on that porch with her arms crossed and her face doing about 6 different things at once. You better believe this. She looked at Stallone. She looked at her daughter. She looked at their hands clasped together. And she didn't say a word for what felt like a full minute. Stallone spoke first. "Ma'am, your daughter is the bravest person I've met today, and I've been on a movie set full of professional fighters." Keisha's mother, whose name was Diane, put her hand over her heart. "What happened?" Stallone told her, briefly, plainly, no drama, just the facts, 3 boys, 2 weeks, every day. He told her he'd handled it for today but that it needed a permanent solution. He told her about sending the boys to Hector's gym. And then he said something that Diane would repeat in interviews for the next 30 years. "Your daughter shouldn't have to be brave just to walk home from school. That's on us, all of us." Diane's eyes filled up. She pulled Keisha close and held her tight. Then she looked at Stallone and said, "Thank you." Nobody else stopped. "I almost didn't see it," he admitted. And you could tell that bothered him. The chance that he might have walked a different route, might have been 10 seconds later, might have had headphones in if headphones were more of a thing in 1985. The randomness of it shook him. You could see it in the way he rubbed the back of his neck and looked at the ground. Now here's what happened next, and this is where the story goes from good to legendary. Stallone went back to set, finished his scenes, wrapped for the day, normal movie stuff. But that night, he made phone calls, multiple phone calls. He called the school Keisha attended and spoke to the principal directly. He called the local precinct and talked to a community liaison officer. He called Hector Morales at the gym and told him 3 boys would be showing up and to work them until they couldn't lift their arms. And then, listen to this, he called his own publicist and told her absolutely nothing. He didn't want press on this. He didn't want cameras. He didn't want a story. This wasn't a publicity moment. This was just a Tuesday for a man who remembered what it felt like to be small and scared and completely alone. But stories like this don't stay quiet. They can't. They're too good. They leak out through neighbors and barbers and the guy at the bodega who told his cousin, who told his girlfriend, who told a reporter at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Within a week, a small article ran, buried in the local section. It mentioned Stallone by name but had no quotes from him because he refused to comment. The headline was simple: "Movie star intervenes in schoolyard bullying incident." Boring headline. Nobody would click that today, but people read it, and people talked. What they talked about most was what happened at Hector's gym. You want to hear this? Tommy showed up. The very next day, 3:30 in the afternoon, still in his school clothes. He walked through the door of Morales Boxing Gym on North Broad Street and handed Hector the crumpled call sheet with Stallone's handwriting on it. Hector looked at it, looked at Tommy and said, "Gloves are in the back. Start wrapping your hands. I'll show you once. After that, you remember or you bleed." The other 2 boys showed up that same week. By Friday, all 3 of them were training, hitting bags, jumping rope, running laps around the gym until their lungs burned and their legs turned to rubber. And Hector, who'd been training fighters in that neighborhood for 22 years, did something brilliant. He didn't just train them, he assigned them a job. Every Tuesday and Thursday they had to help the younger kids in the after-school program, setting up equipment, holding pads, teaching 8-year-olds how to throw a jab without hurting their wrists. And this right here is the genius of what Stallone set in motion. He didn't just punish 3 bullies. He gave them responsibility. He gave them a place where being strong meant protecting someone weaker, not targeting them. No word of a lie. 3 months later, Stallone came back to Philly for additional shooting. He went to the gym, walked in unannounced. And there was Tommy holding a heavy bag for a 12-year-old girl who was throwing combinations with everything she had. Tommy was coaching her, telling her to keep her hands up, telling her to breathe, telling her she was doing great. Stallone stood in the doorway and watched, didn't say anything for a long moment. Then Tommy saw him. Their eyes met across the gym. Tommy straightened up, walked over. "You came back," Tommy said. "Told you I would." Tommy stuck out his hand. Stallone took it, pulled the kid into a hug and held it, not a quick bro hug, a real one, the kind where you can feel somebody shaking because they've been carrying something heavy for a long time and they're finally allowed to put it down. Hector walked over, wiping his hands on a towel. "This kid's got talent," he told Stallone. "Quick hands, good instincts, and he's better with the little ones than I am." Stallone clapped Tommy on the back. "I believe it. But the story doesn't end at the gym, because Keisha Williams is the real story, always was. Here's how it played out. After the incident, Keisha's mother Diane got involved with the school, not just complaining, but organizing. She started a parent walking group that escorted kids home through the rougher blocks. She connected with other mothers, other families, and within 6 months, that walking group had 30 volunteers. They wore bright orange vests. They carried walkie-talkies. They covered a 12-block radius. And the bullying on those routes dropped to nearly zero. Keisha, meanwhile, kept reading. She read Charlotte's Web 3 more times that year. She read everything she could get her hands on. And she started writing, little stories at first, then longer ones. She wrote a story for a school competition about a girl who gets saved by a superhero, but the twist was that the superhero didn't have powers. He was just a regular man who decided to stop walking. She won that competition. The prize was a $25 gift card to a bookstore. She bought 4 books and read them all in 2 weeks. Now fast forward. This is the part that'll give you chills if you've got a pulse. Keisha Williams graduated high school in 1993. She graduated from Temple University in 1997 with a degree in journalism. She got a job at the Philadelphia Inquirer, the same paper that ran that original buried article about Stallone. And in 2002, she wrote a feature story about community intervention in youth violence. In that story, she included one paragraph about the day a movie star stopped on a sidewalk in Kensington and changed the direction of her entire life. Stallone read that article. Somebody on his team flagged it. He called the paper and asked to speak with the writer. When Keisha picked up the phone and heard his voice, she had to sit down. "I remember you," he said. "I remember you too." "Charlotte's Web," he said. Mark my words, she started crying right there at her desk, because he remembered the book. 17 years later, he remembered the book. He invited her to visit the set of his next project. She came. They sat together for 2 hours. She interviewed him, officially this time, and he talked openly about his childhood for the first time in years, about the bullying, about his father, about the feeling of being invisible in a world that only sees you if you're strong enough to demand it. And then Keisha asked him the question she'd been carrying since she was 10 years old. "Why did you stop that day? Nobody else did." Stallone leaned back in his chair, rubbed his jaw, looked at the ceiling for a few seconds. Then he looked at her and said 7 words, "Because somebody should have stopped for me." That's it. That's the line. 7 words. No speech, no music, no dramatic camera push. Just a man in a chair telling the truth about a wound that never fully closed. If this story moved you even a fraction of an inch, hit that subscribe button right now. We tell stories here about real people doing real things that most of the world never hears about. 1 click. That's all it takes. Let's keep going. Tommy Marchetti, the big kid from the curb, the one Stallone grabbed by the collar, here's where he ended up. He trained at Hector's gym for 6 years. He never went pro. Never wanted to. But the discipline, the structure, the daily proof that strength could be used for building instead of breaking, it rewired something in him. He graduated high school, which, based on where he was headed in 1985, was not a guaranteed outcome. He went to trade school, became an electrician. And in 2001, when Hector Morales was getting too old to run the gym alone, Tommy took over the after-school program full-time. Volunteer. No pay. Every Tuesday and Thursday, just like Hector assigned him 16 years earlier. He ran that program for 14 years. Hundreds of kids came through. Some became fighters. Most didn't. But all of them learned the same thing Tommy learned from a man on a milk crate. The thing inside you that feels like it needs to hurt someone, it doesn't. It needs to go somewhere else. Give it somewhere else to go. Now here's the detail that ties everything together, the detail that makes this whole story feel like it was written by somebody who actually cares about endings. In 2010, the city of Philadelphia launched a citywide anti-bullying initiative. They needed a spokesperson, somebody local, somebody with credibility, somebody who understood the issue from every possible angle. They called Keisha Williams. By then, she was an editor at the Inquirer, a published author, and a sought-after speaker on youth advocacy. She accepted, and for her first public event she invited 2 guests to stand beside her at the podium, Tommy Marchetti and Sylvester Stallone. This is real, you can look it up. The 3 of them stood on a stage at a community center in North Philadelphia, the bully, the bullied, and the man who refused to keep walking. Keisha spoke first, Tommy spoke second, and when it was Stallone's turn, he kept it short. This is a man famous for monologues. He gave them 4 sentences. I didn't do anything special that day. I just did what any person should do. I stopped. That's all any of us have to do. The room erupted. Standing ovation. People were crying. Tommy was crying. And Stallone, the toughest guy in movies. The man who went 12 rounds with Apollo Creed and stared down Ivan Drago. He had tears running down his face too. He didn't wipe them, didn't hide them, just stood there and let them fall. After the event, the 3 of them went to dinner. A small Italian place in South Philly. They sat at a corner table and talked for 3 hours. Keisha told Stallone about the parent walking group her mother started. Tommy told him about the kids at the gym. Stallone told them about a letter he'd received from a girl in Detroit who'd been bullied for having a speech impediment, the same thing he'd been bullied for, who said watching Rocky made her feel like she wasn't broken. That letter saved my life, Stallone said, not the other way around. That girl saved mine. Wouldn't you know it, the restaurant owner figured out who was sitting in his corner booth. Word got out. A small crowd gathered outside. When Stallone, Keisha, and Tommy walked out, people lined the sidewalk. Not for autographs, not for selfies, though a few people tried. They lined the sidewalk because stories travel in Philadelphia. Always have. This city remembers. And this city remembered the day in 1985 when a movie star grabbed a bully by the collar and then sat down on a milk crate and did something harder than throwing a punch. He told the truth. About himself, about pain, about the cycle that turns hurt kids into hurtful kids and hurtful kids into broken adults. Keisha wrote about that dinner. One final article. It ran on the front page of the Inquirer's Sunday edition. She ended it with a line that became the most quoted sentence in the paper's history that year. Heroes don't always fight, sometimes they just stop walking. Diane Williams, Keisha's mother, lived long enough to see that article. She cut it out and framed it. It hung on the wall next to the green front door of that row house in Kensington until the day she passed in 2016. Under the frame she'd written in pencil, "He slowed down for her," because that's the detail. That's the one that matters most. When Stallone walked Keisha home, he shortened his stride. He slowed down so a 10-year-old girl with little legs could keep up. He didn't drag her along at his pace, he matched hers. And that's the whole thing, isn't it? That's the whole story in one physical act. You want to help someone? You don't make them keep up with you. You slow down. You meet them where they are. You walk at their speed. And you don't let go of their hand until they're home. Hector Morales died in 2008. Heart attack, in the gym, which is exactly how he would have wanted it. Tommy gave the eulogy. He said Hector taught him that strength without direction is just violence, and violence without purpose is just pain looking for a place to land. Those words were originally Stallone's, spoken on a sidewalk to a scared kid sitting on a curb. They traveled from a movie star to a boxer to a bully to a eulogy to a room full of people who never knew where they came from. That's how truth works. It doesn't care who said it first. It just keeps moving until it finds the person who needs it most. The gym is still open. It's called the Morales Community Center now. Tommy still volunteers there every week, though his knees aren't what they used to be, and he mostly sits in a folding chair and watches the younger coaches do the hard work. On the wall by the front door, there's a framed piece of paper, crumpled, old. The handwriting on it is barely legible. It's a movie call sheet with an address written on the back in blue ink. Nobody touches it, nobody moves it. It stays right where Tommy hung it 20 years ago. New kids ask about it sometimes. Tommy tells them the story, the short version, just the important parts. A man saw something wrong. He stopped. He didn't look away. He didn't keep walking. He stopped. Keisha Williams published her first book in 2014. It was about growing up in Kensington, about the walking group, about the power of one adult showing up at the right moment. The dedication page had 3 words, "For the man." She didn't use his name. She didn't need to. Everyone who read it knew. Stallone was sent a copy. His assistant said he read it in one sitting in his office with the door closed. When he came out, his eyes were red. He didn't say anything about it. He just went back to work. That's the man. That's who he actually is. Not Rocky, not Rambo, not the guy on the poster with the bandana and the machine gun. The guy who stops on a sidewalk, who sits on a milk crate, who ties a broken backpack strap into a knot so a little girl's library book won't fall out, who remembers the title of that book 17 years later, who slows down his walk so small legs can keep up. The world wants heroes who punch. This story is about a hero who paused, who listened, who saw a bully and recognized a broken boy, who saw a victim and recognized a future leader, who understood that the distance between those two things, between the bully and the bullied, is almost nothing. It's just which side of the fist you're on. And sometimes, all it takes to change that is one person, one moment, one decision to stop walking. Philadelphia remembers, Keisha remembers, Tommy remembers, and now you remember too. That's the legend. It was never about the punch, it was about the pause. The gym is still open. It's called the Morales Community Center now. Tommy still volunteers there every week, though his knees aren't what they used to be, and he mostly sits in a folding chair and watches the younger coaches do the hard work. On the wall by the front door, there's a framed piece of paper, crumpled, old. The handwriting on it is barely legible. It's a movie call sheet with an address written on the back in blue ink. Nobody touches it, nobody moves it. It stays right where Tommy hung it 20 years ago. New kids ask about it sometimes. Tommy tells them the story, the short version, just the important parts. A man saw something wrong. He stopped. He didn't look away. He didn't keep walking. He stopped. Keisha Williams published her first book in 2014. It was about growing up in Kensington, about the walking group, about the power of one adult showing up at the right moment. The dedication page had 3 words, for the man. She didn't use his name. She didn't need to. Everyone who read it knew. Stallone was sent a copy. His assistant said he read it in one sitting in his office with the door closed. When he came out, his eyes were red. He didn't say anything about it. He just went back to work. That's the man. That's who he actually is. Not Rocky, not Rambo, not the guy on the poster with the bandana and the machine gun. The guy who stops on a sidewalk, who sits on a milk crate, who ties a broken backpack strap into a knot so a little girl's library book won't fall out. Who remembers the title of that book 17 years later? Who slows down his walk so small legs can keep up? The world wants heroes who punch. This story is about a hero who paused, who listened, who saw a bully and recognized a broken boy, who saw a victim and recognized a future leader, who understood that the distance between those two things, between the bully and the bullied, is almost nothing. It's just which side of the fist you're on. And sometimes, all it takes to change that is one person, one moment, one decision to stop walking. Philadelphia remembers. Keisha remembers. Tommy remembers. And now you remember too. That's the legend. It was never about the punch. It was about the pause.